Every team, every topic, everywhere. This is Believe.
What's up, everybody? Friday Face-Off. Unfortunately, we do not have Jeffrey J. Hulavecchio today, but brought on a guest way better than Vex, way better talent than Vex. He is a recurring guest, been on before, Jon Francisco of Forecheck Hockey. Jon, thanks for hopping on Friday Face-Off. You ready to let her loose, get her going?
Yeah, Toph, thanks for having me on. Sorry you couldn't get Vex with the missing tooth and all the tats and stuff, but trying to step up to his plate here.
Yeah, well, you're gonna have to bring the talent here. Vex is the man. But I'm so excited to have you on here. And if you haven't listened to our podcast episode with Jon before, he runs a company called Forecheck Hockey, which is I would say a hockey education company as it relates to body contact and body checking. And we know that is a big part of the game and needs to be done correctly. And there needs to be a lot of education on that so we can keep players safe, but also be better as well.
Yeah.
And so, excited to have you on here.
No, appreciate it. Always fun hanging out with you guys and hanging out with you on here. And you guys do a great job with what you do, and just happy to be a part of what you guys do. It's a great movement, and I think you guys keep doing what you're doing. It's moving in the right direction.
Thanks. So Jon is also a hockey dad as well. And it was a great player back in his day, has a son that is playing at the national program right now for the NTDP, second year as a U18, committed to go to Notre Dame, playing for just recent guest Brock Sheehan. He was only on, I think, maybe a couple months ago. So another great guy in the hockey world. But what I wanted to talk about today is, I've been on the road a lot here over the past couple months doing a lot of parent education seminars with the organizations that we work with. And one of the things that I talk about a lot that I think is extremely valuable to any hockey parent is a simple question, and that's, what's your why? Why did you put your kid in youth sports? Why did you put your kid in youth hockey? And, we talk a lot about how the youth hockey landscape and ecosystem can be confusing for parents at times. It can be stressful. But I think going back to your why of why you put your kid in it can really help to ground you and center you and put you on a path where you feel like you can make the right decisions with and for your kids. And so just before I get into some of the things that I typically talk about with the parents when I'm on the road, as it relates to this question, Jon, would love to ask you, as a hockey parent who has helped a kid come through it, when it comes to what's your why, what's important to you?
Oh gosh. I think the biggest thing for us that we consciously made a decision as parents was just to get our kids active, right? And get them doing something so they're not sitting around. And we wanted them to play every sport imaginable, right? And we tried to get them in every single sport just to get used to, working with other kids and, how to work hard, how to learn from your mistakes, goal setting, everything that you need in life, right? And, expose them to every sport imaginable. Got into hockey, obviously, too. And, by default, I think just because I played hockey and grew up and was doing it at the time when my kids were born, I think they saw it around me. So, I think keeping things in perspective, though, of what's important really is the end goal, right? I mean, we all have aspirations of making it as far as we can. But the reality of it is it ends for everybody at some point, right? And so it's some are earlier than others. And I think just for me personally and my wife and I think that was the biggest thing for us, was really just getting our kids, social out with other kids, getting active, learn to have some fun, being a good teammate, overcoming obstacles, controlling the controllables, all that kind of stuff that really, make you a good person in the end of it all.
Love that. Absolutely love that. And I'll dovetail a lot of what Jon is saying into what I talk about with youth hockey parents when it comes to this question of what's your why and why you put your kid into youth hockey. And I do a fun little thing where I basically say, I'm gonna very fairly but very unfairly stereotype hockey parents into two different hockey parents right now. And you have a parent A and you have a parent B. And based on my experiences, having been a Division I coach where a lot of my job was recruiting, I've met a lot of families. We've had a I've been in a lot of living rooms, and we've had a lot of people on campus, and so certainly I've had a lot of different conversations. And so, in these kind of two camps, let's call them parent A and parent B. And so parent A, what's your why? Oh, baby, I got to make sure my kid is in the NHL at 18. I got to do everything in my power to expedite the process and make sure they're in the NHL as soon as possible, or the PWHL as soon as possible. Next, I have to make sure that my kid is on the number one ranked team on my hockey rankings. If they're going to get anywhere on their journey, they have to be, on the number one my hockey rankings team. They live and die through that website. Also, you look at my status as a parent is directly tied to how well my kid is playing. If my kid is really good on the team and is playing really well, I feel like I'm a cool parent. If my kid is not playing very well, I don't feel like I'm a cool parent. My value isn't as good. And then lastly, I'll take a little bit of a shot at the dads here, but certainly have met a few dads who had their own dreams and aspirations of playing hockey at the highest levels and didn't make that. So by God, they are going to make sure that their kid is going to get there so they can live through, their kids' experiences. So that's parent A. And what's your why? And then you have parent B. And what's your why as a parent B? Kind of similar to what you were talking. I want to make sure my kid is physically active and healthy, mentally and physically. I want them to learn life lessons like discipline and accountability. I want them to learn how to be part of a team, have a role. I want them to have fun. I want them to make friends. And that's their why. And what I tell the parents when I get in front of them is, in all of my experiences as a Division I coach and meeting all these families, I think there's a fallacy out there that if our kids want to play at the highest levels of this game, that we have to be parent A and we have to put pressure on them and we have to challenge them and we have to professionalize it so fast. But what I'm here to tell you is that I would say 90% of the people that we deal with at the Division I level of kids that we're recruiting is not parent A. It's actually parent B. And are there kids who are that talented where if you have parent A craziness, they're going to make it? Sure, there are some that slip through the cracks. No question, just based on sheer gifts you've been given from God, or maybe an unbelievable support system outside of mom and dad. It takes a village, right? But so many of the kids that we recruited and the families that we had, it was love and support, man. It was, this ain't my journey. This is my kid's journey. I'm here to just help and support. If you have questions for me, I'll be happy to answer them, but I'm not, and we've had parents, right, where it's like you're in the recruiting room and you ask the kid a question and dad answers. It's like, no, I actually asked your kid the question. Like, it's a huge red flag for us. Oh, yeah. And so, and it's funny because I do think that just based on kind of sheer volume and reps, there are kids who are the best players at the age of like 9, 10, 11, 12 years old who do have parent A, because they put them in everything and they're doing all the reps and everything like that. But like, you got to run the race to the right finish line. And a lot of times those kids are not the best players at 15 or 18 or 19, when it actually really matters, because they fall out of love with the game because of the pressure that's been put on them from their parents, or they're getting injured because they're playing way too much hockey and they have overuse injuries and stuff. So, Jon, you got a kid at the national program playing for the NTDP. I would love to hear kind of your experience as a dad helping your kid through the process. What was important to you and your wife? You already gave us a little bit there at the beginning, but just thinking about your why, what you've seen with different hockey parents that you've been involved with, and know just if we're on the right track here, and if you think that this is something really important for parents to hear.
Well, I mean, you covered a lot there, right? But I mean, to start, you're right. You're right on track with all that stuff. And I'm going to go back to when I was a player. I played with guys professionally that hated hockey, right? They hated hockey. They did it so much. Their parents drove them so much. They did it all the time. They didn't know how to do anything else. They were stuck by the time they got to that age. They're like, I don't know what to do anymore after this. I don't have another life. I don't have any other skills. I don't have any, right? And so they just kept playing, and they hated it, right? And ended up resenting their parents for it. And, kids at 9, 10 years old, they can't tell mom and dad, no, I don't want to do this anymore, right? Unless it's really a comfortable situation for those kids, right? So to be able to pull back and say, all right, we're doing too much, or we're doing too, let the kid have some fun. And I think that's the biggest thing is it's got to be a drive and a passion and a fun driven by the kid, right? And we all say, yeah, our kid wants to go skate and do lessons at 10 or 11, 12 years old, but really, do they? I mean, they all just want to go play with their buddies, right? Whether it's stick handling or, playing in the garage or video games sometimes, right? Like video games aren't bad every now and then, right? It's not something you want to do all the time, but to go back on what you said, I think that it's important to really let your kid drive the conversation, right? And drive the passion and really ask the questions. And instead of, it's really easy to give the answers for your kids, kind of like you said, as you talking to the coaches, right? Hey, do you think it's a good idea to go to the rink today, right? Or, hey, do you want to go to the rink today, right? There's different ways you can just ask a kid if they want to go or not. And I think having them drive that and enjoy it still and not be overbearing with it all. I just saw a thing the other day was parents don't go to the rink for practice. Drop your kid off and let them practice. And it's so true, right? Like let them, every time I ask my kid right now, he's at the program, I'm like, how was your day? He's like, it's good. Right. And that's all I get out of them. Right. Like, hey, are you in a good mood? That's great. Like that's all I get out of them anymore. Right. It's not like I can probe a little bit and ask some questions, but if he wants to give me more, he'll give me more. If he doesn't want to talk about it, he doesn't want to talk about it. Right. They're at an age right now where, he's 17 years old, going to be 18 here in a couple months. Right. And so this is his journey, his path. He'll make it as far as he wants to make it. Right. And I can only do so much. And, we've been very blessed and very fortunate for him to be able to get the opportunity. Right. But there's a lot of great players that don't go to the program that develop and get better. Right. And that's, there's so many different, like you said, there's so many different paths in the hockey world, and there are scouts everywhere. Right. And you don't know if they're a scout sometimes, you don't know if they're a coach sometimes, they're there. Right. Or they know somebody that's there, or they have the connections that's there. And that's why, you don't have to post your kids' accomplishments online, right? Like it's cool to be proud. And I hear it like, I'm proud of my kid, and that's fine to be proud. But when you see something every single week about how they were successful or scored a goal or whatever, and, just it's got to be enjoyable, right? It's got to be fun. You got to have a good time doing it. And the same goes with the parents. The parents should be having some fun too, right? Like, and once the parents have fun, the kids have fun. And that's just a healthy culture.
Totally. And I think about so I'm a newer parent. My oldest is 8, but I find myself a lot of times when my kid is acting up or, not listening or whatever, I see that as a direct reflection of me and my parenting. And I feel like you see that a lot in youth sports, particularly youth hockey. Like if a kid, isn't playing well or whatever, the parent takes that as a slight to themselves, and their ego gets in the way, just like my ego gets in the way when my kid has a tantrum at, the grocery store or something like that. People are going to think that I'm a bad parent because my kid's throwing a tantrum, or in this case, people are going to think that I'm not a good parent if my kid, isn't the best hockey player on the team. I think that's a very real thing that people feel within the hockey realm and outside. And I know for myself, it's a lot healthier when I kind of disassociate one from the other. Right. My 8-year-old's having a tantrum because she's 8, or my 6-year-old is not listening because she's 6. She's not a bad kid. I'm not a bad parent. Yeah. We're all doing the best that we can here, and it's about the process, not the result. Just continue to do the things that you feel like are going to help and go from there. But do you feel like that's something that might be a part of why parents get so overly involved, maybe overly critical, is that they almost see what's going on with their kid as other people reflecting on them as a parent?
For sure. That's a natural human instinct though, right? I think, and having perspective of that whole thing is, like you just said, you had perspective. My kid's 8, right? If your kid's throwing a tantrum at 16, well, then we got it's worth, nipping in the bud a little bit. But I think, I think the thing that my wife and I are most proud of our kids is just how good of people they are, right? They shake people's hands, they look people in the eye, they can have a conversation with people, right? And they're compassionate for other people. And, it's not just about them all the time. It's, their teammates, if they have success, they're excited for their teammates, or if they're down, they go pick them up, right? And I think that's the thing that, was really conscious of us and our family, was just good people. Right. And so I think that's what we're probably most proud of our kids for. And they work hard and they've had successes, but they've also had failures too. Right. And so being able to be around them and support them through their failures, because you see a lot of kids that go and they're really good and they get away and they move away for juniors, and they start having these failures at juniors when they're not home and they're not around their family anymore, right? So who's going to teach them how to get through those failures? And that's those are lessons that you hopefully are able to teach your kids at a younger stage in life, where you can teach them how to get through that, how to be respecting authority, and how to control your controllables and things that you can't control all the time, right? And those are tough things, but I think it's. The hockey community is amazing, right? I think there's so many good people out there and good coaches and good families. And, again, like you said, it's the 1% of people that are probably the loudest out of this whole thing that, kind of gives it a bad name. But I think in all, hockey's been a fantastic sport, not only for my family and I, but for other people that we know, our friendships and everything. A lot of our friends are through hockey, right? So I think, like you said, though, when it goes back to the parent and the feeling of you just got to keep it in perspective again, right? They're 8, they're 9, they're 10. Nobody's gonna sign an NHL contract here when they're even when they're 16 years old. That's still not happening. So enjoy the process, enjoy watching your kid play, because you don't know when it's going to end. You really don't. So it can happen in an instant.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Just perspective is a very powerful thing. Perspective, we believe in. And What's Your Why is all about perspective. And I would encourage all of the hockey parents who are listening at different points during the year, especially when things maybe aren't going so well, and take a step back. What's your why? What's your kid learning from this experience? And I think that can go a long way to really enjoying the experience with your kid, enjoying the experience as a family, and really just gobbling up, like you said, everything that is awesome about this game. So
yeah, I will say, I'm going to add one more thing real quick. I know we're probably over our time, but I will say, give yourself a little grace as a parent, right? Oh. There's no playbook for this. Right. That's the biggest thing. And it's not like you do this and you're going to get this result. We don't know what we're doing when we have kids. I don't think anybody ever, if anybody's really honest with themselves, you have a kid and you're like, oh, hell, what the hell am I doing right now? I have no idea. But you figure it out. Right. And I think if you give yourself a little grace and say you overreact or you do something, and even if you say it to your kid, apologize to your kid even. It's okay, right? Like, hey, I overreacted there. I shouldn't have done that. That's a real parent. That's standing up and showing your kids that mistakes do happen too. And so we've done that. I've done it myself, right? I've gotten caught down the path, and I'm like, you got to do this, you got to do that. And finally, I sat back and I was like, "Oof, that was." My wife kind of gave me the old tap on the shoulder, and she's like, "Yeah, that was a little too much." And I was like, "Yeah, it was." So I went back and apologized, but that's part of life, right? Like, give yourself some grace in this whole thing too. So
yeah, parenting's hard, man.
Yeah.
It's crazy. All right, good stuff. Jon Francisco. That's yes. Fun to say. Jon Francisco with Forecheck Hockey. I got those mixed up a little bit. Just tell our listeners a little bit where they can find you, social media, website, all that good stuff.
Yeah, everything Forecheck Hockey. The number 4, CHECKHOCKEY. So we got a website, all the social medias, and all that kind of stuff too. But just trying to be like you, Toph. Trying to help make the game better and inform parents and players and coaches, and really just try to do this as a community, and hopefully that we can get more and more people on board with this whole thing. So
absolutely. We'll keep up the great work, and thanks for your time here today.
Thanks, Toph.
If you like the show, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. It really does help the show to grow. Thank you for listening.